Now, it's hard to believe that today marks exactly 2 years since Boris Johnson put the UK back into its first national lockdown. And, of course, it led to eerily deserted streets and landmarks. Now, coming out of the pandemic, it's been revealed today that loneliness is one of the biggest issues that remain with us. And, Linda, that sort of hits home for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because like everyone else in the country and all over the world, when we first went into the first lockdown, I was lucky enough to still have my kids with me, Louis and Bobby, and their partners were with me, so we were all in lockdown together. But I thought the hardest thing of all was not being able to see my grandchildren, and my daughter Lauren and her husband, so they don't live that far from me. So I'd go round, we'd drive around, and I'd just talk to them from the window, leave some cakes or some stuff on the doorstep for the grandchildren. And also Leslie Joseph, so she lives on her own in South London. So we'd go to visit Leslie and we'd bring over some goodies because her son lives far away from her and her daughter lives far away. So she was sort of on her own, although she's got neighbours around her and that. So I'd bring funny things over, like tenor ladies, hair dye, tweezers, and nice things as well, like flowers and some food and everything. But it doesn't have to be lockdown to be lonely, because my kids have all moved out now. So my son's moved out, although he only lives downstairs to me. And then my daughter Bobby's moved out, so I'm home alone with my husband.
So you've almost got kind of the double whammy, because you missed your granddaught's in actual lockdown, and then when lockdown... I look
after them as well.
Now it's finished, in a way you miss the fact that all your older kids were living with you.
And all their friends used to be round all the time. Mine was always a really busy house full of people, you know, bubbly and funny and everything. And now, all of a sudden, like, my husband works and that, so when I get home, I'll be there on my own. So I do get really, really lonely.
You don't ever like really being on your own?
No, I hate it. I hate being on my own. I just like...
own time.
We've got a family house and, like, the kids are always there, and I really, really struggled. I think the saviour for me was that we went back to work 5 weeks after the first lockdown.
Yeah.
So at least then we had to get up and go out and see your mates at work every day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was really, really lonely. I still feel lonely now because they're not there, you know, like when I get home now today, there'll be no one there.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? Because when we talk about being alone, there's two sort of types of being alone. There's the loneliness that we're talking about today, and then there's also solitude, which is that you're alone, but actually...
It's enjoyable. You
quite enjoy it. And you like your own company,
I do. I'm like you, because I have a mad household and it's always busy and people there and all of that. But then 2 days later, when they all disappear, it's like... I enjoy the peace as well, and just being able to do what I want to do, watch what I want to do, sort my stuff out.
Yeah.
I quite like that as well.
I'm with you on that, and I think that when we first went into lockdown, I actually felt very prepared to be in my own company, because I'd had so much experience of that, you know, lots of long spells in hospital. But for me, lockdown was quite tough. I couldn't shield with my family. They were all key or essential workers working in hospitals, to making sure we had enough bread to eat as a nation. So I had to shield in London with my flatmates, and then I got COVID. So there was this feeling of being a bit of a burden on them, because we'd never had that dynamic in our friendship when, you know, they needed to look after me.
So do you ever get feelings of what people describe as that feeling, that longing of loneliness?
Yeah, in many different ways and in different scenarios. For example, if my friends are going off and doing something that I perhaps can't do, for example. But I do think that when you live with a condition or an impairment, you are much more set up. Not to say that it's easy, because it wasn't easy, but yeah, absolutely.
But I also think maybe some people are feeling lonelier now that we're out of lockdown, because none of us are making the same effort, actually, that we made in lockdown. We did the Zoom calls every week. We phoned people more to check on them. You know, my family did a Zoom call every night, a quiz, you know, all of that. And now that everyone's back out there, you've kind of forgotten those people that maybe still are sitting there on their own. So maybe we should be more aware of that.
Do you think there's a stigma attached to sort of actually admitting that you feel lonely, Linda?
I think some people might feel like that, but I don't, because I'm really honest and I'll say exactly how I feel. And I do feel really, really lonely, and I really, really miss them all being there. And I also find it hard because I was always #1 in their lives, and then they've all got partners now, so
not that you're making them feel guilty at all if they're watching. Oh, my word.
I just want them all to move back in again.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, I think you're absolutely right. In lockdown, it made you think about your friends and family that do live on their own and make a concerted effort. And then there's a bit now where you kind of think, oh, they're all right now.
Yeah.
Don't need to bother doing that anymore.
Don't need to see them because I can see them next week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really...
So maybe that's a lesson for all of us and any of you guys actually at home, just remembering that loneliness will continue on after.
Nothing's going to help Linda, though.
No, nothing.
Apart from all her kids moving back in again. No pressure. Now, if any of that resonates with you, then there are, of course, people that can help. Details are on the ITV website.